Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be ranking every sprite in Chapter 7 Season 3, discussing which are the most broken, which aren't exactly the best, and the ones that are just downright useless. Also, just quickly, we won't be considering any of the modifiers that come with the rare sprite variations on this list. Some of those effects are way too strong, and would throw my rankings off entirely. And finally, before we actually start the video, I just want to thank everyone so much for helping me finally reach 1,000 subscribers. It truly means the world to me, and don't worry, a special video to celebrate the milestone is currently being produced. I hope you guys stick around for that one. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. But hey, with all that out of the way, let's just dive straight into the Fortnite Sprite ranking. And starting off, I'm going to give a quick honourable mention to the 7 sprite, which, as of recording this video, it has yet to be released. I don't know if it's going to be in the loot pool by the time this video comes out. But according to the leaks, this sprite will work somewhat like the tracking visor from Chapter 6 Season 3, allowing you to see, where your opponents have moved and where they may be running to or hiding. It sounds really good, actually. The biggest issue I had with the tracking visor was the fact that it took up an inventory slot. So to be able to just have this on your back, not taking up any of them, seems like a huge positive. Yeah, honestly, I can't speak about this thing too much, on account of not being able to play with it yet, but from what I can see and what I've heard about it, it feels like it's going to be a pretty good one to keep just on your back in the middle of a game. It probably would have ended up, no pun intended, towards the number 6 or 7 slot on this list, and I'm pretty excited to see these things in my matches. But actually kicking off this list, we have what is easily the worst sprite in the season, being the Punk sprite. This one it's literally useless. Like, the sprite power for this thing, which, by the way, you are going to hear the word sprite a lot in this video, is for it to do literally nothing unless it's at the maximum level, which goes completely against the gameplay loop of the season. With how ravenous people are for these sprites, you're going to want to extract this thing immediately, meaning the only way you're really ever going to be able to use this thing is if you keep it around at max level, which also just draws a huge target on your back. And even when it is leveled up, what does it even do? It grants a slight ammo buff with a chance to not shoot a bullet from your current magazine. I'm sorry, but a sprite that does nothing for 90% of the time you're going to be holding it is completely pointless. It's not even bad, there's just no reason to take this thing. And I'm sorry, but this thing has to stay right at the bottom of the list. Genuinely, anything else is better than this thing. But following that one up, coming up next at the number 15 spot, we have a super surprising one, and it's actually going to be the 0 Point sprite. Now, a lot of you guys might be shocked to see me putting this down here so far. What with it being the most coveted sprite of the season by a mile. But I don't know, guys. I just don't think this thing is good at all. I mean, the nature of the sprite, how people are treating it, sort of undermines any upside you could get from the shield bubble. I mean, with how rare this thing even is, if anyone, and I mean anyone, sees this on your back, they immediately rush you, completely destroying, like, the entire point of the shield bubble to begin with. Plus, with the bubble being completely unique to the sprite itself, it can't be found anywhere else. It means that, like, every time you pop a shield, you'll be giving away the fact that you have one of these things. Oh man, it's so stupid. The ability this one has completely undermines the entire point of the sprite. There isn't a single part of it that actually makes sense, and even if it wasn't super rare, the ability this sprite gives you would still be completely useless. All they had to do was to give this thing the ability to grant 0 Point dashes, the ones you can get from reloading the Blink Mag SMG, and this sprite would be pretty much perfect. But with the way they've dealt with this thing, it just leaves a lot to be desired, and it feels super underwhelming when you compare it to just how rare this thing is. I don't know, guys, it's just a shame, that's all I can say. Carrying on though, we have one that you're probably sick of seeing at this point in the season, and of course, I'm talking about the water sprite. Now, what does this thing do? It heals around 3 health per second while standing in water. This thing is unbelievably situational. It is so hard to actually find a spot where this thing even works, and even then, even if you do manage to find a spot where it works, and you're in cover so you're not going to get shot at, and somehow while you were doing all of that, you hadn't found a single shield portion, the healing itself is just super weak as well. Also, the ability on this sprite seems to be like super broken right now. I don't know about anybody else, but has this sprite just not been working for you guys at all? Like, I swear I've tried time and time again to try and trigger this healing effect, but it just never seems to activate whenever I need it to. It just seems to be super finicky, which is definitely a bad thing because it will just screw you over when you really need it. Regardless, as I said before that tangent, the amount of health per second you get from this thing is way too low. Like, I don't know, guys, why would you just not take a medkit? Simply put, there is no advantage to taking this thing over literally any other healing item in the game. Even bandages are better than this thing. I'm sorry, but the Chapter 6 water sprite completely clears this thing, and that thing was elite. But following that one up, we have one which is basically the same as the previous choice on this list, but a little bit better. And as a result, we aren't going to stay on it for too long, and of course, I'm talking about the Duck sprite. like I said, this thing is basically the same as the water sprite, but instead of healing you when you're standing in water, it heals you whenever you use a jam track or an emote. What can I even say about this thing? It literally has the exact same abilities as the previous sprite, but it's much less situational. You know, you won't always have a river, you won't always have like a pool to stand in, but you'll literally have emotes on hand every second of the match, and you can also box up and dance whenever and wherever you should need to. It's exactly the same, but better. Moving on from that one though is another aquatic themed sprite, and is also the first on our list to actually be added from a fan submission, and it is the fishy sprite. Now, of course, same as all the other ones on this list, this thing has a unique ability which, as you may have expected from the duck sprite, allows you to swim faster whilst in a body of water, such as a river or a lake. And even though this ability is quite useful, especially with how many rivers you can find across this new map, it isn't why I've ranked it above all of the previously mentioned sprites. No, it's because this one has a hidden buff, with that every time you get shot at, you gain a slight movement speed increased on land. Yeah, I mean, that's actually super useful. I mean, they're not majorly so, don't get me wrong. It won't let you run around at 1,000 miles an hour, but it can sometimes be just enough to outrun a squad or throw your opponent off in a build fight. The only real downside to this thing is that this ability only gets activated once you get shot. It would be super cool if this trait activated when you left a body of water, you know, maybe granting you the increased movement speed for so many seconds before it runs out. But what we have right now is fine. Yeah, I mean, this one, it's just okay. I mean, it's inoffensive, it does what it has to do, and that's why it's at the number 12 spot on this list. But moving on to the number 11 spot in this list, we have a rather interesting one here with, the burnt peanut sprite. Now, there's a lot to be said with this one, primarily with the guy that it's, based on. All controversies aside though, this one seems to do literally everything the Earth sprite does, but worse in every single way. Like, I have never seen this thing work once, or even if it has, I just didn't notice. It certainly didn't have an impact on the items I found on an opponent. I mean, sorry, I haven't explained it. What it's meant to do is that whenever you eliminate a player, it'll drop an extra item on top of whatever they were holding, with a small chance for a mythic item. And whilst this idea is good in practice, I found that with a loot pool this stacked, the item that drops from using this sprite is usually like not much better than what you had before. I don't know, man, it's just a super forgettable sprite ability. You're just not going to be rocking this thing, especially with it being a mythic and it being based off who it is. You're just putting a massive target on your back with little to no reward. Still though, it does have the potential to be really good, especially in the early game, so it did make its way up to the number 11 spot in this list. There's no arguing that. But following that one up, at the number 10 spot is the Grim Sprite. Now, when I was writing up the points I wanted to discuss for this video, I actually had to look this one up so I could even start to form an opinion on it. And that's because I didn't even know it was in the game. It's so stupid. I mean, I'm going to talk about all that just in a minute, but disregarding that point, the sprite itself is pretty good, I'd assume. Apparently, this thing marks anyone who attacks you for a short duration. It sure seems like a cool feature. Like, back in Chapter 6, Season 1, I always picked up the boon that gave you this ability. Even though it is about as useful as a chocolate teapot, you know, you can usually tell where you're being shot from. It's not like a bad thing to have, and being the first one on this list that doesn't require you to, like, do anything out of the ordinary definitely gives it a little bit of a boost. It just works the way it's meant to, you know, without having to let yourself get shot or compromise yourself by standing still for a million years. And with all this in mind, you guys may be wondering why I did have to look this one up. This one is almost as rare as the 0 Point Sprite. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but the disparity between how rare this thing is and how much it actually does really shoots it in the foot. It just isn't good enough when you consider how hard to find it actually is. Let's be honest for a second here. The average person, you know, who doesn't have anyone to trade with, let alone knows what trading even is, isn't terminally online, and also just isn't grinding this game 24/7, simply won't know this thing even exists. It's a huge gripe I have with the rare sprites, and in extension, it's also what I have with the Grim Sprite. It's as simple as that. And following that one up, coming up next at the number 9 spot in this ranking, we have a much more common item, being the Fire Sprite. Now, what this sprite does is that it sort of converts every one of your weapons into a Dragon's Breath class item, which basically just means that once you deal enough damage to your opponent, it will set the surrounding environment and builds on fire. Now, I have seen a little bit of discourse surrounding this sprite, with some people complaining that they get caught up in the flames whilst they're fighting an opponent, and to that, I say, yeah, that's kind of a skill issue. No, sorry. I'm sorry. It's just like, have you guys ever thought about moving out of the way or shooting at them from a distance? Like, I understand complaining if you're box fighting someone, but even then, if you know your playstyle is more geared towards close quarters combat, then just don't take this thing. But on the other hand, if your playstyle is actually geared to what this sprite rewards, you're gonna thrive with this thing. It's honestly such a fun item. You know, I love the flame effect in general and used it to great effect back in chapter 2. So to see it return even in a slightly more diminished state was super cool. Yeah, I mean, it's super fun to use. The rarity of the sprite actually feels appropriate, with of course it being one of the 3 starter sprites. Everything about this thing is great unless you're being a bore. It's just perfectly bog standard. I think it being just on the back half of the list is a perfect placing. It isn't mind-blowing per se, but it'll do. But hey, carrying on from that point, we have another sprite that just kind of gives you items, so we're not going to talk about it for too long. But of course, I'm talking about the Dream Sprite. Essentially, what this thing does is every time it levels up, it drops a random item at your feet, with the item scaling up in rarity until you reach the final level, in which it will drop several legendaries and extract itself into your collection. Now, the loot you can get from this thing is actually pretty good. It's really fun just as a part of the gameplay for this season, and I do enjoy the fact that you can actually tell you're being given loot, rather than it just being a potentially mid-weapon slapped onto an opponent's body. It just feels loads better. And also, I did briefly mention it at the start of this point, but the fact that this thing automatically extracts itself once it reaches level 5 is a super underrated feature, and instantly puts it above all of the other sprites on this list. Like, seriously, removing the whole stress that's involved with the extraction feature is a huge W, but at the same time, I couldn't really put it too high up on the list because it is just another item sprite. Even though it is better than the Burnt Peanut, I just think there's still one more sprite on this list that does what both of these sprites aim to do, but better. And carrying on from that one, at the number 7 spot on this list, we have a relatively new addition to the game, being, of course, the Aura Sprite. Now, what does this thing do? Essentially, it grants you the Shock Rock item every time you eliminate a player. And if you didn't know what a Shock Rock is, those are the pink shards you can find around the 0 point this season. And even though this thing is just kind of like another movement-based sprite, it can be really, really good. Like, the Shock Rocks themselves, you know, they are kind of mid on their own, but as long as you have 3 of them saved up, you can literally fly across the map. And as a result of these items being as good as they are, the sprite itself becomes just as good. Like, even though you can pick up 6 of these things at the 0 point and carry them with you across the match, you're eventually going to run out, especially if the storm pulls up to the edge of the map, meaning that this sprite would be the only real way to pick these up. Plus, the more you level up this thing, the less damage you actually have to do to the player to get a sprite. If you're lucky and say you come across someone with a max level boss sprite, you'd literally be able to get all 3 charges off of one single enemy. It's just a pretty cool sprite. It's not amazing, it's not in the top 5, I just think this thing is decent. But carrying on from that point, we have a sprite that has an incredibly interesting ability, being the Ghost Sprite. Now, what does this thing do? Basically, once you've shot a bullet out of your weapon and you reload your magazine, it doesn't even need to be an empty magazine, even a single shot will be enough to activate this feature, is that it will actually grant you the invisibility effect for a varying amount of seconds, with the lowest level giving you 3 seconds of stealth and the highest giving you 5. Seriously, if I'm not carrying a sprite that I consider to be better than this thing, I am picking it up every single time. It's just really good, and I know this is definitely going to be a more niche appreciation for what this thing can do, but I am super glad that it's using the more modern version of the cloak effect, you know, rather than the version seen throughout chapter 4 and 5. All of those items were completely useless. I mean, the Mysterio medallion was literally infamous for making you flash bright green or whatever every 3 seconds. It would end up giving you away instantly, and there was literally 0 point to taking any of these things. But I'm not only glad to say that they've fixed these issues with this item, but they've made this thing super overpowered if you use it correctly. Like, this thing is pretty good for sneaking up an opponent. I mean, I don't have footage of it, but literally just before I hopped on to record this video, I made an incredible play where I used this thing to escape from a sweat on 1 HP, and I ended up sneaking right back into their box without them even noticing, and literally took them out with a headshot. It felt great to use this thing. It's super unique and it's super fun, and I definitely think it deserves to be high up on the list, but it is tied down a little bit with how dependent it is on how good you actually are at the game. And at the same time, there's tons of sprites coming up soon which are actually broken, so I just couldn't put them above it in good conscience. And kicking off the top 5 on this list, we have what I think is honestly a fantastic item to just carry around in a more general sense, being the King Sprite. I mean, this one is pretty easy to explain. It just increases pickaxe damage across the board. But I'm being 100% honest here, you guys. You do not understand how good this thing is until you actually start to use it. There is nothing funnier than dropping in with a max level king sprite and just obliterating someone off spawn with a pickaxe. Nobody's expecting it, which just makes it incredible for early game. I mean, it does have some more practical uses. You know, it's great for harvesting. It gets trees cut down in like 3 hits. It's fantastic for breaking into boxes if that's more your play style. I mean, yeah, if you have sweaty lobbies, this sprite is genuinely a must-have. It can just take an opponent off guard instantly. You know, they're expecting, what, like 3 hits to get into a box, and they just get in through like 1 or 2. Honestly, even though this one isn't exactly the most complicated thing in the world, it's pretty good all around, and it definitely deserves to be in the top 5 on this list. But following that one up is another sprite we won't really talk about for too long. Again, it's just another item granting sprite, but this one is easily the best of the bunch, and of course I'm talking about the Earth sprite. With this thing having little to no cooldowns and guaranteed good items makes this thing insane. And with how common this item actually is, it definitely makes it a lot more palatable than something like the Burnt Peanut or the Dream sprite. It just feels good to carry around, you know, you're not stressing, oh my god, am I going to lose this thing? Am I never going to see it again in a public match? It actually has a decent amount of input, with each level adding a 2.5 chance to get an item on top of the already ridiculous 10 to 20% spawn rates. It's actually really good. And when I say you can get items, I don't mean like basic items like assault rifles or anything like that. I mean you can get any item. You can get mythics out of this thing. I'm pretty sure the Infinite 7 sliders are exclusive to it. And even if you don't get a weapon, I'm pretty sure there's a chance it could drop shields or quack snacks, which can help it level up even faster. It's just goated, and it's what I've been running as my base sprite throughout the season. It can actually give you really good items. It's super consistent. It's just as common, so you don't feel bad losing this thing if you die. There is literally zero downside to taking this sprite Weir, and it definitely deserves to be in the top 5 on this list. It's just that good. And carrying on from that point, at the number 3 spot on this list, we have a sprite that feels even better to pick up and use, being, of course, the Striker sprite. Now, the effect that this particular dude has is a very special one. Every single time you either perform a mantle, or a hurdle, or even just an edge jump, you will be given the overdrive effect, boosting both your running speed and jumping height. I truly can't express how ridiculous this thing is. Like, when I say it grants you the power whenever you perform one of these actions, I don't mean, oh, every few seconds. No, I mean literally every single time you do them. You can just keep stacking them, and as long as you keep doing them over and over and over again, you can effectively have infinite stamina the entire game. This sprite is so unbelievably broken. It is actual insanity. This thing is almost as, or even just as, broken speed-wise as the overdrive pulse rifle. Honestly, if you aren't using this thing to its fullest potential, you are missing out. It's for sure one of the better sprites in the season, and it very much belongs at the number 3 spot. It is simply phenomenal. And talking about phenomenal, coming up next at the number 2 spot on this list, we have the Demon sprite. What else do I even say about this thing? It gives you Siphon. It's fairly self-explanatory. Like, you guys know what Siphon is. You know what Siphon does. So instead of explaining it, I'm going to move on to what this thing can do. It's just crazy. Like, on launch, it was already doing a crazy amount of work, giving you up to 25% of your health back per elimination. But in the most recent update, it got buffed to have a base stat of 10% and a max level stat of 30%. It's absolutely insane to just have in Battle Royale, especially from a not at all rare item which just sits on your back with no debuff. And even though it isn't tap Siphon, you know, you do actually have to eliminate the opponent to gain any extra health, it still feels incredible, and it's super useful for when you're getting third-partied, which is definitely a huge problem that this season has. The weirdest thing about this item though is that even though it's one of the best sprites in this season, I don't know, people just aren't picking this thing up. I think because of how common it is, it's tricking people into thinking that it's bad, when that just isn't the case whatsoever. I mean, it's super strong, it's super useful, and it more than deserves to be sat at the number 2 spot on this list. But as you guys may have noticed, it's not at the number 1 spot. So what is? And sitting all the way at the top of the list, it's the one, the only Boss Sprite. Seriously guys, this thing is incredible. It literally has all of the benefits of the Play as the Boss feature from last season with none of the downsides. I mean, at max level, this thing will bring you to 250 total health and 300 in zero builds. It is a huge advantage, and it will help you win basically any fight you get into. I seriously struggled whether to put the Demon Sprite or the Boss Sprite at the number 1 spot, but personally, I ended up choosing this one over the former just because of how useful this extra health actually is. I mean, a lot of players that I find in my lobbies have have it in their head that 200 damage is all they really need to do. So to have more than that, and for there to be basically zero indicators of them having any more health than that, can again throw somebody off who may be going in for a rush attack. It's super understated how much of an effect this thing can have on your match. If you haven't been taking this thing, and why wouldn't you, I highly recommend picking one up as soon as you can get them. The only real issues I have with this sprite is the problem of it being directly tied to the new boss feature, and as a result of this, how hard the rare variations of said sprite are to find. You know, with how bosses were changed this season, how they now have to be found across the map rather than having set spawns, it definitely makes these things a little bit more difficult to find and pick up mid-match. But even then, it is literally a non-issue. The sprite is just that good. It makes you feel a little bit safer walking out of cover. It helps a ton in intense combat. Every single situation you can find yourself in is helped with the sprite being on hand, and in my opinion, it is easily the best sprite in this season. Alright everybody, thank you so much for making it all the way till the end of the video. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We're officially on the path to 2,000 subscribers now, so any help would be greatly appreciated. Also, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to head on over and join our official Discord server. We have an amazing community, tons of minigames you can play, and you can talk to me directly. But hey, at the end of the day, all you really gotta do is stay safe, drink some water, and have a fantastic day. Bye bye!